Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grow With Us. My name is Evan Barton, and I'm your host who helps create conversations with the innovators and leaders of a growing tech center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The Grow With Us podcast highlights the work of community leaders, tech entrepreneurs, nonprofit professionals, and talent development advocates in Tulsa. Grow With Us is a podcast of In Tulsa. In Tulsa's mission is to connect talented individuals and companies to stimulate economic growth in Tulsa and to create more prosperous communities across the region. Each episode, Grow With Us discusses the growth of opportunities, the growth of communities striving for change, or the tech and innovation that is changing the landscape of Tulsa. On this episode of Grow With Us, we are talking to Laziz Askarov, the co-founder of Relance and a participant in the Builders and Backers program. Laziz and I discuss our collective experiences in Builders and Backers and New You programs. We reflect on our interactions within the Tulsa artistic community, and we explore Laziz's work in connecting artists to support services that can amplify their impact and reach. Welcome to another episode of Grow With Us. Laziz, I'm so excited to have you on this episode today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity, Evan. I'm excited for our conversation.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I've had the opportunity to kind of know you and meet you in, I think, the most organic way possible at an event, a networking event, and then kind of seeing you in the ecosystem doing things. We are going to get to this kind of later on in the conversation, but we've actually done two different programs now at the same in the same
crazy.
year.
Yeah.
We're both
same cohort.
Yes, exactly. We're doing things, and I'm excited to kind of reflect and talk about your journey with those, and also kind of share a little bit about mine as well. But this is going to be great. I'm really glad you're here.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Let's go ahead and just jump in, with your story and kind of an introduction to yourself. Just tell us your story in whatever way you feel comfortable.
Yeah, totally. So my name is Laziz Askarov. I'm originally from Uzbekistan, born in 98. Man, it's been a while now. Quarter of a decade. No, quarter of a century.
There we go.
Yes.
I'm right there.
That didn't sound right.
I'm right there with you. And I understood.
Yeah, well, that's all that matters. So I was born in Uzbekistan, but then me and my family, we ended up traveling a lot. So I ended up growing up in Argentina, kind of in between Argentina and Brazil. So I did my kindergarten, went to Russian kindergarten, then started Spanish, Argentinian elementary school.
Wow.
Went for 4 years in person, and then I ended up doing it online before we moved back. And I did the latter half of my middle school in a Russian middle school before coming to the States for high school.
Okay.
So it was very, I think, a unique childhood.
Yeah.
And growing up and changing the scenery so many times, and almost like the cultures being so radically different to each other. And I think just learning to, adjust and go with the flow and embrace the excitement of the newness and meeting new people, but also the hardships, right, that come with it, of learning a new language, needing to make new friends, especially during the times when you're a kid.
Yeah.
And making friends is important. And having that group is important, but when it's constantly changing,
that
it's hard to, it's hard to anchor yourself in any sort of way.
Yeah.
So, but then after finishing high school here at Victory Christian down south, I was like, hey, I'll be leaving Tulsa. There's no way I'm staying. And the reason for that was I grew up in all the big cities in the world, in Buenos Aires, Rio de Janeiro, lived a little bit in Moscow, Tashkent. So millions of people.
Yeah.
And coming to Tulsa was almost like coming to a village.
Yeah.
I was just like, man, there's nothing to do here.
Yeah.
Especially looking back in 2013.
10 years ago.
10 years ago, Tulsa was a completely different place.
Yeah.
And I remember after classes, I would finish school at 3:15, and I would ask my friends, hey, what is there to do? Do you guys want to go out, do something? Yeah, what are we doing? What's the plan? and everyone would just go home.
Yeah.
And just either watch TV or just hang out at home. And I was just so disappointed in that. And I was just like, man, like, what is it out there that I can do here in the city?
Yeah.
And one thing kind of led to another. Initially, me and 3 other friends, 1 Russian American, 2 Ukrainian friends that met in high school, who ended up starting a pottery business that we worked on for 2.5 years. And that's something that kept me for a little bit after high school in Tulsa. But then after that, just like one thing after the other kept coming up. And now my perspective is so different on the city.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful to be here. I think it's filled with opportunities, and the vision that the leaders in the city have is amazing.
Yeah.
And I think now Tulsa is in a place where it's being shaped and molded into something very unique. And I want to be a part of that process, especially within the arts community.
Yeah.
Because I believe that we have so much talent in the city, so many artists with such great talents that work within different mediums. And I want to help elevate their voices and help them get to a point where they can self-sufficiently create art as a living.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. I think I'm going to touch on like one thing in particular kind of about that, like that experience of going home from school and being like, what are we going to do? I bet that was like, I bet the biggest difference was like your previous experience in other cities and other countries, even where like there probably are so many options. There's kids running around, and the kids after school, they all go do this. You know, they go to I don't know, I'm going to make some stuff up. They go to an arcade, or they go play soccer or whatever. And like, I really do think that American and school system and I guess I'll just say specifically about Tulsa, like there kind of is this like, it's individualized so much and not necessarily community based
totally
by any means, which is really interesting. And I think it's interesting that you felt that disappointment, you know, that just noting on that part specifically, because I do think that would be something that I would be like, well, I thought all the kids did this. It would be jarring. Absolutely.
Exactly.
And then to touch on kind of too, the thing that you mentioned at the end about the arts community, that's primarily the vein in which I like first met you and knew your passions and things like that. And over the past 1.5 years, like I've started to see myself like in this scene as well. And also like, you know, loving the art scenes that Tulsa has to offer, and seeing and knowing. It's not just seeing the art, it's knowing the people creating it too.
Totally.
Those connections that we can make and I have made, and I know that you've made as well. It makes me approach this whole crazy world and this small, big city differently.
Yeah.
We have the opportunity to know people and support people that we really believe in their passions and their ability to create and express themselves. So I love that. And we're definitely going to talk more about kind of your role and all of that stuff here in a little bit.
Well, isn't it fascinating that I remember we met at Atento and I think it was before the pandemic.
I moved back from Tulsa, or I moved back to Tulsa in March of 2020, and so it was after the pandemic for sure.
Okay.
My first memory of you was meeting you at AHA at a networking event.
Oh, yes. It was AHA.
Yes. And you gave me a sticker for $5, and then I had my water bottle. And then we saw each other at the gym, and then we thought, like, it literally just kept happening, which is so funny. Cool. Yeah. Also, my friend Gabe, that I think you know, I was just at his house earlier. He said hello.
Thanks. Hello, Gabe. Hope you're watching this.
I hope he is too. But yeah, I think kind of zoning in on Tulsa as a player in all of this too. You said that your Tulsa experience started in high school, and kind of has now extended into almost a 10-year journey in some ways. So what has that relationship been like with Tulsa? How has it kind of changed for you over time?
Yeah, I think it was very interesting. Like, I totally didn't see myself staying in the city the first 3 years that I was here in Tulsa. And I believe just because I didn't know how to get connected and plugged in with the things that were going on at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And once I started making that shift and really connecting and seeing what's going on in the community, supporting and getting to know the people that are within the community, I think that started shifting my perspective over time. And I think now that I am so connected with the things that are happening and the things that I'm passionate about as well, I totally see myself here.
Yeah.
And I think that's still the issue for many people, because I have many friends here in Tulsa that still complain about, hey, like, there's nothing to do today, or hey, there's nothing going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I just look at them, with this crazy face. It's like, are you serious? What do you mean there's nothing going on?
Yeah.
There's so much going on now, but you have to be in the know.
Yeah. Or you have to want to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I really think that's kind of how it comes down to. Like, I think for some people that are longtime Tulsans, and this might be the same. This might be the same insert city.
Mm-hmm.
Longtime resident of your own city. You think you know it all.
Yeah.
You think that you understand what's going on here, there, and I don't like going and doing these things, or this is the same thing they've been doing for a long time. But like, I where cities are at right now, and I will zone in specifically on Tulsa. Where Tulsa is at right now, there is a new thing popping up every week, every month. I mean, we're just to place us in the time machine, we're here on December 15th, right around the Christmas time. And for the first time, like in my lifetime, the Guthrie Green is now like Holly Jolly Christmas or whatever, which is a Quick Trip sponsored thing. Holly Jolly Christmas is so cool. It's so cool over there.
Yes.
Like that I know that's like a very silly thing to be like mention as like, oh, there's things to do or whatever. Like go to Holly Jolly Christmas at the Guthrie Green. But I think it's lending itself to your point too about like, you do have to know and you have to want to know.
Totally. I completely agree with you. And I want to ask you, like, what made you get connected? Like, once you got back to Tulsa, was it just natural? Were you like, hey, like, let me see what's going on, and like, let me start going out and connecting with people? Or like, what was your mindset?
Yeah, definitely my mindset has been, I think, since I got back to Tulsa and kind of in my 4 years away at college, like it was really understanding who I am. And then coming back to Tulsa was like understanding who I am in my hometown, in a place that I call home. And so I think that unfortunately I had to also do that within a pandemic, one that I was taking pretty seriously because of how serious it was. And it is. I mean, we're not out of the pandemic by any means. COVID is still affecting people and things like that. But my approach in engaging in the community and trying new opportunities was like, I have to find a community. I want to find a community because community means everything to me.
Yeah.
I have found so many communities here in town. And it's been exciting to see like, oh, there's this arts community over here. There's this indigenous community over here. There's this queer community over here. There's this entrepreneurial community over here. There really are these different things kind of all working and growing at the same time. I think, and I will be honest about this, and I wonder if you share this sentiment. I think that something that I have found a little bit like frustrating and challenging, but also exciting. I know those are a lot of adjectives for this that I'm going to go into. But the thing about Tulsa is that it's almost a blank canvas in some regards.
Right.
The things that I was, seeking in a city after college, and where am I going to start my life?
Right.
I was wanting those things to already exist. And in Tulsa, we, in the past 3 years, so like we're talking about, so many new things have started up. And so there's a little bit of frustration in the fact that, you have to be a part of building it, or you have to be a part of like creating this infrastructure and build it and then they'll come. That mindset. It's exciting because you get to build it and be a part of the community and what it stands for.
Yeah.
But that I think there's a little bit of a push and pull with like who I am as a person of like where I can plug in and where I feel comfortable building.
Totally.
And I'm still navigating that.
Yeah. No, I think that takes time. Totally. Like finding your exact spot, especially in the current system or place where we're at as a city. I think it can be challenging because it is almost like a blank canvas that's being painted on. But at the same time, I think the cool thing is that it is that.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we can truly create something amazing and something unique. And yeah, I think like Tulsa, the community and the city has been very unique and very special in terms of the support that they provide to each other, but also this common mindset that everyone currently has of like, hey, Tulsa is becoming something.
Yeah.
Like, let's make sure it's something really cool.
Yeah.
And something great that will attract more people and would put Tulsa on the map.
Yeah.
Really.
In kind of all of those different
all
aspects.
Of the spheres.
The business, the arts, the entertainment.
Business, the arts, all of it. And I think, and it's interesting because it's also, I think, there's a lot of space to create new things that don't even exist in other cities.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that we have the opportunity to do that, and currently there's just so many opportunities in terms of funding, so many accelerators available, so much funding in general.
Yeah.
Funding, but also support, mentorship. And people are so accessible here in Tulsa.
Yes. Oh, that's such a theme. I love it.
Yeah. It's such a beauty because I've met so many people just by DMing them, just by sending them a message on LinkedIn or Facebook, and asking them, "Hey, I'm really interested in the things that you're working on. You seem like a really cool person. I would love to sit down with you and just chat."
Yeah.
And there's just so many things that came out of some of those relationships that I'm extremely grateful for.
Yeah. I love that. That's awesome. Honestly, like how I source guests for this podcast is mostly by LinkedIn message and like email outreach. And like, I have had like very few people not respond. Like very, very few.
Yeah.
And then the episodes that come from that are so cool. Like, I mean, like this one.
Yeah.
Let's kind of dive into one of the communities and kind of things that I know that you've been a part of recently. And you've been a part of and helped organize a series of coffee hangouts called Spanish and Coffee. Can you tell us a little bit more about the impact of those chats and how the community is and kind of how it got started?
Yeah, totally. So the way it got started is me and one of my good friends, Yadira, we were catching up. We just got together. We were just catching up on live because we hadn't seen each other for a few months at that point. And that was back in the beginning of August. And literally one of the thoughts that flew by in the conversation, and I had to like stop, pause, and catch it, was, hey, we need something for people to be able to get together, or a place for people to get together and practice their Spanish. Because I've met so many people that have studied Spanish in high school and college, but also I've met people that have moved from South American countries, from Central American countries to Tulsa 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and they need to practice their Spanish. They're looking for it, but they just don't know where they can go or where they can gather, where that would be facilitated.
Yeah.
Because the school setting, from what I've noticed, doesn't really supplement or doesn't really provide much of a space for the conversational aspect of the language.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, here's the grammar, here are the rules. And they don't really focus on conversation, which I believe is really the most important part of a language.
Absolutely.
It's like if you're going to go to Mexico or Argentina or Peru, you just need to be able to speak it.
Yeah. You're not going to be writing down.
Right. It's like, wait a second, let me write it down. That would just be so weird.
Yeah.
But you being able to speak it, that would be something different.
Yeah.
And just by having many conversations and meeting people here, I've noticed that as a common thread of like, hey, we want to practice Spanish and like we want to learn it, just don't know where to go. And both of us were sitting talking to each other, and I was just like, hey, like, why don't we just start a group that gets together every Saturday and speaks Spanish?
Yeah.
Keep it super casual. Have a cup of coffee with it, because who doesn't love coffee?
Exactly.
And let's just speak.
Venue.
Yeah. Let's just speak. And it was so funny because I think we were catching up on a Wednesday, and we had the first like conversational Spanish group that same Saturday, and we put out the flyer Friday.
Oh, wow.
So it was like the day before. I was just like, well, like this is something that will be super casual, not worried about, how many people will show up.
Yeah.
But I think 15 people showed up.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so
that
cool.
very next day. And I was just like, wait a second. Like this is way more than I was expecting for.
Yeah.
And I think that resonated with people.
Yeah.
And with a lot of the locals here in Tulsa, but also a lot of native speakers started showing up.
Yeah.
And I think the beauty of it was that it was so casual. And every single week we would talk about different things.
Yeah.
It ranged from education, culture, to politics, to football games and the World Cup that happened last year, and so many like topics.
Yeah.
And I think the beauty of it was that no matter what our background was, we were all able to just get together, have a great conversation, and leave with new relationships, with new friends that we could come back to, and see each other the next week.
Yeah.
And I met a few really great people that became friends through that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like surprised because some of them would just show up and saying like, hey, I saw it on like the Tulsa Remote Slack, or hey, like I just saw the post on Facebook and I just showed up, and I was just like, wow, like, thank you for coming.
That's awesome. I love hearing all elements of kind of like how grassroots it was and how it just really was coming from this desire and this one conversation that you and a friend have. Spanish speakers, obviously yourselves,
Totally.
Having this like desire to create a environment where people could practice, where we can see what it's like. Language acquisition is something I'm so passionate about. I'm excited to I'm taking Spanish at TCC next semester.
Amazing.
Going to do like the 2-year Spanish language certificate program. I'm a French minor, so I have the classroom experience of learning a language, and that's it.
Gotcha.
And I find that, I find that kind of hard to really grasp onto in my memory, because there aren't too many experiences outside of an academic setting where I was practicing the language. I was able to build a relationship with someone through the use of the language. And so I'm really kind of excited to take that step with Spanish which is a language that I know the community of Tulsa there's lots of Spanish speakers in the community of Tulsa. It is like a whole it is like a whole community in Tulsa that I'm really, really excited to like maybe start connecting with in a different way. It's not that I can't connect with them through my English, but it's like that could be a bridge for us.
Totally.
Us knowing the language. And so you being a part of that, I really just want to highlight and give you some praise. I think it's super, super cool. If there's anyone listening that wants to go to them, how often do you do them? Are you still doing them? What's the kind of sitch on that?
Totally. So we paused them for the moment, but we'll be restarting them in 2024. So anyone that's interested, they should just get in touch with me on LinkedIn or Instagram. They should see posts about it.
Perfect.
So yeah, I believe we're bringing it back the beginning of January. So I think it's going to be bi-weekly this time because every week got too hectic with all the other things that I'm currently involved in.
Yes.
And I think next year is going to be even more so in a good way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I truly value the group because it's something that I personally need.
Yeah.
And it's like, so after learning French, are you keeping up with it? Like, are you practicing it in any way?
No, honestly, that's the thing. Like, it has been difficult to find like a community that would do like French or like speaking French and baguettes. I know that's a little whatever, but there isn't that like opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, there's this whole other thing of like, even if there was this opportunity, I feel comfortable putting myself out there with a language that I have not studied in 6 years.
Yeah.
It hasn't been 6 years, it's been 4 years. But I studied it for a really long time and was passionate about learning it, the culture and things like that. It's just, you're so right on with that like conversational piece is like, it's how you retain it long term.
Right.
And I never had the opportunity to travel and speak French. I was only in the class learning the grammar, learning the culture, through books and through movies and things like that, which I of course enjoyed, because I like learning. But like the practical use of the language is something I'm really excited to kind of dive into.
Well, I know that every month, I believe, there's a group that meets to speak French.
Okay, see, here we go.
And they meet up at Neff Brewing.
Oh, perfect.
Which is like right next to the box yard.
Yes.
So let's go together.
Let's do it.
In January. Yeah, I think
you're going to see how rusty I
believe
am.
it's the second Saturday. But
that's awesome. Yeah, I'd love to go.
Let's do it. Because I went there 2 months ago, I believe. I was invited by a friend. And I went through a period where I tried to learn French, but I never really went through it.
Yeah.
Or like fully dedicated myself to it. So I went to the group just kind of with blind eyes, you know, not knowing what to expect.
I'll pick up on something.
But what I've realized is when you try to speak, people are so, what would be the right word? Empathetic, or like they're very open to it,
receptive,
and they're very receptive. They're very open to help you learn, and in spite of you making all the mistakes that you can imagine, people will be so happy for you.
Yeah,
and they'll be there
English perfectly. You. Like I fully recognize that. Yeah, I have like. I like in all the words that I say, I throw a lot of ums in there. Like I don't know, those words really don't like translate to other languages, but like that is a part of my English vernacular too. So it's so interesting to do the comparatives of how we speak languages and how languages manifest. So I'm down for it. I think we should go.
Yes, let's do it.
You mentioned
we'll have a few weeks to brush up our French.
Yes, exactly.
Before we go,
I'll get in some Duolingo time for sure. You mentioned some of the other things that you're getting started, you're working on. You've always been a guy that I've known that has been doing things and projects. So I'd love for you to kind of share a little bit about what you're working on currently and some of your current ventures.
Yeah, totally. So currently my main occupation is freelance web development. It's what's paying the bills and what's keeping me afloat. But at the same time, I am working on a project to facilitate the collaboration between local artists and also entrepreneurs, people that might need their skills and talents to basically create a easier path for artists to reach a point where they can create full-time and make a full-time living out of their work, because that's really one of the biggest things that holds them back. It's like well, there are a few things that hold them back, but at the same time, that's their dream.
Yeah.
If you talk to most of the artists here in town, it's like, hey, I don't want to be a billionaire necessarily. I just want to be able to create full time.
Yeah.
And I started thinking, okay, well, what would the infrastructure look like to really give the same opportunity to all the artists across the board? Because we have great programs in Tulsa for artists, be it the Tulsa Arts Fellowship, which is a great program. And I saw that they're accepting new applications for 2025 to 2027. So artists that are in town, you guys should definitely check it out.
Yeah.
We have many opportunities, but it's a selective system, which makes sense because obviously it's not something that can be distributed to everyone.
Yeah.
But at the same time of like, okay, well, what are the core elements that all the artists need? Like contract, like invoice management, timeline management on their projects, especially when they're working with business owners.
Yeah.
And what is that common thread that in spite of the medium, in spite of the artist or their place in their career, if that makes sense, like if they're 5 years into their career or they're just getting started, what's that common thread of elements that are the same?
Yeah.
And what system or like what platform could be created that facilitates artists do those things? Because a lot of times those are the things that we drag to do. It's like, oh man, like I need to get the contract done. But it's like, what do I even do? Or like, how do I even do it?
How do I write a contract?
Exactly. How do I write the contract? Or invoicing. It's like, what is the proper way to set this up? Like, how do I accept the money? Right? There's just so many elements to it that artists are usually all over the place with.
Yeah. They're wanting to be creatives, and not necessarily business entrepreneurs.
Totally.
But there is that. The ones that are, I don't want to say successful, but the ones that are able to make that like a full-time living are the ones that are able to really, and I don't even want to say the word legitimize their business because all art is a legitimate business.
Totally.
But like I think formalize is more the word.
Yes. Yeah. And it's a crucial part because it can either break you or make you.
Yeah. As a creative.
Exactly.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's just an element that everyone needs to have in place, especially within the arts, music, arts, visual arts, all of it.
Yeah.
So that's something that I'm working on. And that's actually my idea for Builders and Backers.
Okay. That's what I figured. And I was like, I have also heard this pitch.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. And I'm a huge fan, obviously. I think some things I want to touch on specifically about it. And then we'll kind of get to the B&B part about it. One, I love that there is, and I think you and I are both doing this in our ideas with Builders and Backers, and Jesse included. I'm including him in this. There is like a element of wanting to help creatives be creatives.
Yes.
And creating a infrastructure for creatives to operate in a space that is, like I think formalized is the right word.
Yes.
Because despite like how great it is for there to be 800 options for everything, narrowing it down and finding things that are usable and finding a system and a process that works for you is really what kind of unlocks your potential in some ways. I reflect a lot about like how, what we're working on is kind of this like podcast network idea. And I reflect a lot about like how as a creative and as a podcaster, I want to be able to step into the studio, sit down, record this episode, and that's it.
Yeah, just go home and sleep.
And then just go home and someone else takes care of it.
Yeah, that be amazing?
Well, and I'm lucky and I'm very privileged. Thank you to our in Tulsa folks that support this podcast. I'm able to do that with this opportunity. And so how am I able to think about ways to create that opportunity for other people is always how can I open the door behind me?
Yeah.
And I definitely think that you're doing that as well, which is super, super awesome. And then the next point I wanted to just touch on too, I think there's such an element too of like creating, like in the same way of like opening the door behind you, but creating an opportunity for people to see themselves in this space like earlier on, or just even to see themselves in the space in general.
Yeah.
Because some of the things that you're talking about, there are people that go to college and are creative and have an interest in the arts and the entertainment industry, or just being a creative.
Right.
And then you get told very, very quickly when you get to college, that's not going to make you any money. And why is that true for some and not for others?
Yeah.
But then also, how can I, as someone that has these passions and interests, so maybe I don't necessarily want to create the things where I've been, the money talk has gotten to me or whatever. How can I make money supporting the people that I want to be able to make money? Like, it's all of those questions. So I'm really excited for what you're building, and I want to support it as much as I can.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's like, at the end of the day, I truly believe that artists and creatives are the leaders of our society in general. Because if you really think about it, artists are the ones that create art. Art is what creates culture, and culture is what dictates our society. It's how we speak, how we think, how we write, how we visualize. It's all of it.
Yeah.
So we need to support the artists if we want to have a great city. We need to support the artists if we want to have a great nation. And I think that's just so powerful because, artists have such unique perspectives.
Yeah.
And depending on the artists that we love, we adopt those perspectives.
Yeah. We're influenced by it for
sure. Totally. And I'm extremely grateful to be in a place where they're starting to recognize that. They're starting to recognize the importance of supporting the arts and establishing programs that can further support artists, whether they're just getting started in their careers or they're further down the road and they're already established, and bringing those talents to Tulsa as well. And I think also, like, the funny thing about it is Tulsa, the way it's set up, it has so many museums. And it's wild to think about the size of the city that Tulsa is and the amount of museums that it has. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and what is being curated in those museums? We're really close to the Woody Guthrie Center and the Bob Dylan Center. We've also got the Gilcrease Museum, the Philbrook Museum. Philbrook and the Gilcrease kind of have this focus in many of their like collections and archives on Indigenous art, which is so cool that is also approximated in this area. I think it's so. I think that's an interesting point too. There is obviously a reverence for art in this community. And how do we, instead of not that museums like kind of time capsule things. I think museums do a lot of things. There's education. They create some accessibility to some of these like really well preserved things. But instead of it like one day sitting in a museum, how do we facilitate and support the creation of it? The life cycle kind of can end at a museum, but how do we start the life earlier?
Totally.
Yeah,
totally. And I think for that, there's so many organizations that have been established that are doing great work within the community to really bring the arts and the artists to the forefront of our community. And some of the recent things that have happened was Tulsa Creative Engine and A Creative House by Rebecca, them taking a group of artists to Miami, to Art Basel, and having them experience that scene, but also collaborate with artists down there. And also A Creative House doing a internship for artists in California for 2024, which is super exciting.
That's really cool.
And like giving the artists here in Tulsa the opportunity to go out there, collaborate with other artists, but to also create and see, hey, what is California like? What is LA like?
Why is it successful there and maybe not here, or how can it be successful
Totally.
there and here in a way. And I think one last point about like kind of the importance of art and why we're kind of hammering this home, I think, is because like I think you touched on it very well. Like art is culture and art creates culture. And when I think about art, art's also pretty political. You know, artists are able to manifest their creativity into commentary on. That's what I really love about the Tulsa art scene specifically, is I know that so many artists are imbuing their identities into the art that's being created. And in that it is political. And letting people know that, you know, this is my perspective on this.
Totally.
And I want to be there. I want to support it. And it's super cool.
I'm here for it.
Let's talk a little bit about builders and backers.
Let's do it.
Tell me a little bit about your experience in the program and how things have gone for you so far. We're kind of like, I think we're like right in the middle, I would say, of like,
I would say we're a little bit further along. Like 2/3.
2/3. I think we're somewhere in the middle, 2 to 2/3, which is exciting. But how's it been for you?
It's been amazing, honestly. I think the system that they have, the ideology in which they approach problem solving and entrepreneurship is very unique. And it's very easy to execute on. Some of the things that I've noticed from previous experiences before, and a friend starting businesses and me having some business experience even before the program, it was very interesting that you don't really think of like, hey, like how can I break this problem down into the bare core of it? Right? What is it? What's the underlying problem? And being able to articulate it very clearly, but also figure out, okay, how do I execute against this problem? And how do I figure out, can this be a sustainable business or not? Right?
Does it make money?
Right. Does it make money? Is this a business? Or is it not a problem that's important enough?
Or is it something that is grant funded, where I'm able to address this for 3 months at a time, or 3-month intervals or something like that, but not necessarily like a full year long.
Exactly.
And
it's
cycle.
like, is this even a problem that people care about? Right. I think that's a big one. And most startups failing because they're not really even solving a problem that people care about is a big percentage. I believe it was like over 70% of like all the startups that fail.
Numbers about
and I was just like, whoa, like this is crazy.
And then when you also think about the amount of available capital that goes into that too, it's like, oh, it's so crazy. But I so agree with you. I think the ideology of the program and how it's walked us through dissecting and kind of understanding what our approach to the problem is. First of all, what's the problem? What are you assuming about the problem? And then what is your approach in tackling the problem? Is really, really cool. I last night I had the opportunity to kind of dive into the like doing your funding proposal outline piece. And there's like this wheel of like problem, idea, your core assumptions, what experiments you're going to run, and then what are you measuring, which is really kind of like an amalgamation of like all the activities that we've done. Writing that problem statement. My problem statement is 3 sentences long, which I feel like is so long, but
Tell me.
I'll read it.
Go ahead.
Podcasting in Tulsa does not have infrastructure to support aspiring podcasters, to cross-promote relevant local content to audiences, or to provide accessible space for production. In this lack of infrastructure, aspiring podcasts may never be actualized, and existing productions continue to lose cross-promotional opportunities. A sizable demand exists for cross-promotional market expansion for podcasts in the region, a well-resourced studio space for production, and opportunity creation for aspiring podcasts to be created. So that's what we're trying to solve. I hope it, as far as I know, we're on the right path. Good. I'm glad it's legible and understood. But and then our idea is to make a network. So it's been really cool. I really have enjoyed this process. I love I think what's so interesting about it too is the whole, you get out of it what you put into it. That being so real. I have had the I think that is so real in so many different ways, and it just kind of like being reemphasized through this program. It's just a good reminder of like life is what you.
It really
it's
is
what you get out of it. What you
really
get out of it,
is.
what you put into it.
Yes.
And seeing so many other people passionate about their problems, or the problem that they see and want to solve,
totally,
is so cool. And I really think that everyone on the Builders and Backers team is very encouraging. And you know, it was as cheesy as it sounds, but and like, yeah, to be fair, they're the only ones that responded to my experiment announcement on Declaration Day earlier this week. But all four of the builders responded and were like, these are great ideas. Nick was like, boom, boom, boom. We have a good experiment here. And I'm like, okay, thank you for validating
me. Yeah, it's funny. I think only the builders responded to my declaration as well. And I was just like, hey,
I gave you an emoji.
I think I gave you a heart.
Thank you.
Because I read through it and I'm excited to see the execution of it.
Yeah. And I think, and likewise.
And I think, the great thing about the program is this is also something that we can implement in our lives.
Yeah.
Right. And the problems that we experience as individuals as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's the power of it. Right. And the iteration of it, I think, is so important.
Yeah.
And how can, like, now I'm thinking about, okay, how can I truly master this methodology and really implement it as almost like a second thought, right?
Yeah.
Of like, without even thinking of like,
second nature. This is how I approach a problem.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, let's break this down. What are our assumptions?
Yeah.
How can we test against those assumptions?
Mm-hmm.
How can we track the results?
Yes.
And let's move forward from there.
I was like, what are some of the other things they ask? Does it work?
Yeah.
Can it make money? Does anyone want it? These are all good questions.
Those are valid questions. But then at the same time, it's like, how can we test those things very quickly, right?
Yeah.
It's like we don't have to get everything started.
Yeah.
To see if there's a demand or not.
Yeah, you can't stand up all the legs and at once. Yeah. No, that's so important. It's so cool. I mean, I hope anyone in Builders and Backers listens to this feels good, and or if you're curious about the program, there's so many ways you could reach out to. I'm sure Laziz and I both would love to share even more about our experience, and also like a way to get connected there, doing some great things in Tulsa and also in other communities. So there might be an opportunity for you to get involved in Builders and Backers in your respective community.
For sure. And they recently announced a new program which is for mobility,
which is super cool. Public transit. Who wants to solve that?
Yeah.
So many people.
Anyone that has any ideas on how can we better navigate our cities, our neighborhoods, our communities. Yeah. They have a perfect program for it.
Yeah, to test some ideas. It's awesome. Let's wrap up this conversation with one last programmatic question. We kind of also had the opportunity to be a part of another program at the same time in the same cohort at the top of the year, which was the New You program. I'd love for you to kind of tell me what your biggest takeaways from that. And it's been almost a whole year since we started it. Mm-hmm. How has the 2.0 version of yourself approached 2023?
Yes, I was actually reflecting about this the beginning of the month, so 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I was looking at my vision board, and I still have my room. And I was looking at it, and I was like, wow, like truly a lot has changed this year.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to it. And I think one of the big things is that I'm really leaning into who I am as an individual. And I think I have a very clear vision to what type of individual I want to become. And just being able to move towards that goal on a daily basis is very empowering.
Yeah.
And just like knowing that, okay, like I am doing me, like I am being authentic, and I'm working towards my dreams, my vision for life. And the program has really helped me clarify that.
Yeah.
And really kept me on track with the vision board and some of the other exercises that we've done throughout it. It's like getting to know who we are personality wise, but also it's like, who do we want to become?
Yeah.
Like who is Laziz? And although I haven't reached all of the goals, right?
Yeah.
It's a daily thing that I'm moving towards. And some of the goals that I've put for myself is a daily goal, right? It's not even like, hey, like I will be 175 pounds and lean and this and that. But it's more like, what type of a lifestyle do I want to have? And what type of characteristics as an individual do I want to embody?
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly, I feel the exact same way about kind of New You helped me figure out how to not how to be me, but in a way.
Right.
How to be me.
I totally get that.
How to be me and how to want to be a version of me that I can see myself becoming.
Totally.
And that is, I've had a really challenging year. I've had a year of immense change.
Yeah.
And things that I wasn't that weren't on my vision board that happened. And you know what did happen though was that I was me and me more confidently in every one of those situations that life threw at me, because I had taken the time to really understand who I wanted to be. And
I love that.
And all that. So I mean, it's crazy. New You has afforded me and awarded me so many opportunities. I now work with like 3 other people from our cohort in my office, which is awesome. One of them is one of my really close coworkers. And we met from New You. Brooke Smart. She and I work together at Campus Tulsa now, which is so cool. And shout out to Brooke Smart. We're gonna get you on Grow With Us one of these days. But yeah, it's been just to be connected to that program and have been an alumni. I will always recommend it to anyone that is curious about more about what we're talking about, why we feel empowered in the way that we do, why we feel this sense of self. It is not only empowering, it is encouraging, and I don't know, it doesn't solve everyone's problems. Right. And I don't think that's the intent of the program. But it's to inspire people to feel like they can, or to feel like you have the reins.
Right.
I think that sometimes that was really a lot of what the program kind of helped me realize, is that like I could let life pass me by.
Yeah.
And not be a part of it and just let things happen, or I could have a say in every single thing that happens to me, right. You know, or like I want to have, I don't know. There really are some inarticulated thoughts about it, but I have lots of reflections and really only positive things to say about it.
Yeah, no, totally. And that's the thing. I think I personally, like, going back to what you said earlier, and everything you do, you get out of it what you put into it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a clear example to my personal experience in the program, because I was very excited to do the vision board and to go through the activities. And I was present there every single time. Yeah. Although, you know, there were like 2 weeks that I was like, man, I was having issues with my car, and I was like, I don't know, will I get there or not? So I made it work. And I'm so glad that I did. Yeah. Because I can clearly see the results that it has had in my personal life. And I'm just excited with this new year approaching, is doing almost like an addition to my vision board. Yeah. And like a refinement process because not many things have changed in terms of the vision that I have for myself. But I think updating that and just doing the exercise to regain that clarity, right? And regain that vision and have that right in front of you that you can then look at every morning that I wake up. I think that's just so powerful.
Yeah, he gave us the tools to do that.
He did.
And why it's important to do that.
Exactly.
And we're talking about Aaron Wiggum, the genius behind
You're amazing, Aaron.
We love Aaron. Always gets a shout out on this podcast. Go listen to New You Voices.
Yes.
But yeah, I love that. I think you're so right on. We have the tools, and revisiting that is going to be how we continue to be in charge of our own destiny.
Totally.
In charge of our lives. So I love it. We've definitely gone on so many directions, and we've talked about a lot of things. I really, really appreciate you having so many candid conversations with me about just multiple different things, Laziz. Is there anything you want to plug? Anything that you want to share with our listeners about what you're working on or what you might be working on in the future and how they can get involved?
Totally. Well, one of the things that I want to mention is, as we're talking about New You, as we're wrapping that conversation up, there's also a program called Soy Más, and it's for any of the Latino folks out there that want to get plugged into the community, but also want to gain that clarity on like who they are. It's a very similar program, but it dives more into the emotional self-development portion of like who you are as an individual. And it's ran by 3 wonderful ladies, friends of mine. And I recently actually finished that as well. I went through it because Yadira, one of my friends that helped start the Conversational Spanish Club, she runs it. She hosts it.
Cool.
And she was like, hey, like you should do this. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll do it.
Sign me up.
Sign me up. What do you need me to fill out? But it's a great program. I definitely recommend New You for everyone. And currently I'm working on building the platform that facilitates the collaboration between artists. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, I'll be posting updates there soon. And this is something that I want to be building with the community. So I'll be making announcements on all of my social media platforms here within the next few weeks. And I really want to build a product with the community that solves the problems that the community has.
Yeah.
Because I believe we have the talent on the tech side, but also the art side. And now how can we come together to build this necessary infrastructure that all of us are needing across the board? And what does that look like, right? Because I have an idea of like what the functionalities will be like and all of those things, but I want to have clarity and also the engagement of the community. And it's like, hey, like, do you guys think this is useful? Like, would it be useful to you? And build it together, because at the end of the day, it's for the community.
Yeah.
So, so it's exciting time. I think 2024 will be amazing. And definitely have some experiments to run.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Evan.
Thank you so much, Laziz. I really appreciate you being on. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to this episode of Grow With Us. Grow With Us is supported by In Tulsa Initiatives. If you're interested in learning more about In Tulsa services for job placement and workforce development, please visit talent.intulsa.com. From there, you can join our talent network where you'll get access to our newsletter, and our talent team will make sure we put the right opportunities on your radar. We put the choice to pursue a new career and opportunities in your hands. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify to be notified when more episodes of Grow With Us are released. Let us know what you think about how we're doing by rating and reviewing. It really helps. Grow With Us is edited and engineered by Rant9 Productions and Jesse Ulrich. This has been Grow With Us.